there, ref. That she got the ball. Good morning, Tottenham fans. Welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with Joe, boys, Dave and Jack. And we are so back because today is our first preseason game. And boy, are we looking forward to it. A lot to discuss today. Jacko, how are you, my man?
Already on amateur hour because it's the first game of the season, so got to get this stuff out. I was on mute, but didn't say anything yet. I'm feeling tired. It's early in the morning, probably still in the evening for some crazy people here in Seattle, but getting ready for first little, tidings of the season, first little warm-ups. A team like Reading feels like, the most appropriate of teams to be playing, in the first little glimpses of the Thomas Frank era. I'm ready for the Thomas the Tank Engine to get started here, Dave, and good to see the people that, we have been doing a lot of these pre-match buildups with for a while now, the likes of Stevie and the likes of Drusilla. It feels like, you can tell the season is underway here once we start seeing familiar faces again, and just feeling good to see our man and Lily White. And, even just the fact of waking up this early is a reminder to myself of what's about to come.
Straight back into the swing of things. No rest for the wicked on the weekends, that's for sure. But no, you are right. It is Thomas Frank's first game in charge. And look, initially, I was skeptical around the appointment, but, some of the transfers, well, mainly one, Kudos, and hopefully Morgan Gibbs-White coming, that eases my concern a little bit, even though we've still got more work to do. But Drew, great to have you back, my man. Know that we're going to have many battles over the course of this season about Johnson and Kudos. How are you, my man?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Good to see the band back together. Looking forward to it on a Saturday. Need to be getting used to this because obviously, Champions League football and all that.
Yeah,
we're usually doing these on Sundays, and so in the back of my mind as well, I'm thinking to myself, I can do this and still have another day off on the back of it. Like usually, I'm doing this early doors and then going up, getting to work the next day. So it's going to be different, but it's going to be nice. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm like you. I'm still, I still don't quite know what to make of the appointment. I'll be brutally honest with you. I've obviously been on a couple of other channels and talked about it. I'm positive. I'm looking forward to it, but still in the back of my mind it's just a risk. And I think for my own benefit, I just want the season to start. I want to get a couple of games under our belt just so that I can see how we do. But yeah, really, really excited. Big up the chat. Good to see everybody. Thank you, Jersey K32. It does look quite nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So I'm in it. As soon as I put this on this morning, as soon as I saw you boys pop up on the screen, as soon as I saw everyone in the chat, J Mac, Sean M, Lee Moody, I can feel myself about to get fully involved in this season. So big up, boys. Big up.
I have to say, the jersey looks sharp on you, and I think you're one of the only people that's come back off the summer looking younger.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I feel a lot older, so I really appreciate you saying that, man. Thank you very much.
The older is definitely not what's happened to you this summer anyway. But look, you are right about Thomas Frank. It is a huge risk. And initially, I was feeling the same, but hearing them come out and saying we want to play attacking football and stuff like that, that has sort of alleviated my concerns a little bit. But, one thing playing attacking football, but you still got to make sure you can win
one
games.
Thing talking
about interesting to see if, Thomas Frank can get any more points over the line. Last but not least, Stevie, my man, how are you keeping? How has your summer been?
Oh, man, it's been excellent. And I want to thank you guys for having me back on the pre-match build-up, man. It's an excellent gesture, and I do appreciate it. But I'll tell you what, man, I spent my summer essentially, covering the U.S. men's national team and the respectable Gold Cup run. And now that the country has been taken care of, it's now time to focus on the club. And of course, that begins today in a car park versus Reading. So I have no idea what to make of that stadium naming rights. To me, it sounds like they're just playing football in a car park. But regardless, the 2025-2026 season kicks off today. Against a team that's I don't know how you guys feel it, but for me, this isn't really much of anything. Except for the opportunity just to get the group back together, get some of the guys back off of loan, reintroduced into the group, maybe some of the new players coming in. And for this is just an opportunity just to kind of get the wheels going and getting some momentum as we push to the Super Cup and of course the first match of the season in the Premier League.
For me on that, I think these first two games, Reading and Luton, I think will be used to suss out the periphery of Frank's squad, what he's going to let go of, what he's not going to let go of. That's what I think these two friendlies will and should be used for before we head out to the preseason tour to Hong Kong and Korea. And that's what I'm thinking these two games are used for. And that's maybe what we're going to see. Of course, there are going to be other players, you know, likes of Romero's and stuff like that, and Van de Ven's that are probably using this for fitness. Just to mention, there are 3 players that won't be available today. That is Kulusevski, Madison, and where's the other one? He mentioned it yesterday, and Dragusin.
Yeah.
Play any part today. They are a bit further away from injury. Next week, not quite so sure. You might see 1 or 2 of them back. But today, there are 3 players out for Tottenham Hotspur. But look, we're back. And that's the main thing. Honestly, after the Europa League final, I couldn't wait to get away. I couldn't wait just to get away from it all the hysteria, all the negativity, and just go and enjoy my trophy. I got sucked back in very quickly than what I thought I would, but it's just great to have the football around because, to be honest with you, been twiddling my thumbs most of the summer waiting for signings and stuff. So, you know, I'm just glad to have the football back. But look, let's welcome a few people in, and then let's crack on because we have so much to discuss today. One of the big talking points is a lot of fans in general say you can't really take much from preseason. Well, I'd argue there was a lot of things we could have took from last season in preseason that you would have seen actually the season coming on the horizon. So I do think maybe in modern day football, can you take stuff from preseason and know what to expect for the upcoming season? But all will be revealed, and we will talk about that, of course, about Thomas Frank, tactics, everything else. Welcome, Dermotron. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Enjoy yourself on We Are Tottenham TV today, my man. We also have Brandon G. Glad the pre-match is back. Looking forward to the season. We've got Shawnee Johnson in the house. Welcome back, gents. I'm really excited about today. Can't wait to see Bergvall back again. And Kudos bag his first Tottenham goal. Come on, you Spurs. Kudos is the guy I am waiting to see today. Kerry King, come on, you Spurs. Feeling ridiculously excited for this friendly. Another new era as European champions. Absolutely love that. You know, we've got to remind ourselves we are heading into this as European champion. Good Beach Entertainment. Great to see you. What time's kickoff? 3 p.m., my man. 3 p.m. We've got Iceman. Big up Dave and Jack and everyone in the chat. Hope you're all great. Had a great week, and so we begin preseason. Let's go. The Frank engine has finally arrived. Thomas is here. Big up Sean M. Great to see you. J Mac as well. Hopefully you're keeping well, buddy. Hopefully you've had a good summer. K32. Big up K32. Hello, Dave and Jack and everyone. I'm so happy my beloved Spurs are back. My pals Dave and Jack are back to the game commentary too. We'll see how we get on with commentary. You know, sometimes that goes out the window, but we'll wait and see. K32, good to see you, my man. We've got Let's Know. Good morning, Jack and Dave. Ez is in the house. DJ Samuel. Who else we got here? Lee Moody says should be lots of good personal performance to see today, as all we want to show off to the new gaffer. Well, we hope so. K32 complimenting Drew's jersey there. We've also got Shem Tam. Afternoon, Dave and Jack, our American brother. Come on, you Spurs. Finally back to Spurs Day. All aboard the Thomas the Frank engine. Chew. We've got El Dante in the house. Big up all. Come on, you Spurs. Hope everyone is well. Well, we're sitting here with smilers on our face, so that could be wiped out in a few hours' time. But right now, we are happy, my man. Good to see you. Mark McDermott, as always, he says, hi, boys. Let's do it all again. Come on, you Spurs. All again is right. We are Spurs TV. Good to see you back. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. Who else have we got here? Finn Rickwood. Big up, gents. Let's get the Frank up and rolling. Come on, you Spurs. We have Laura Johnson in the house. Come on, Spurs. Let's get off with a good start today. Del Boy, a.k.a. Derek Hutchison. Big up, Dave. And panel, great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Future's bright. Future's lily white. As always, good to see you. Hopefully you're not taxiing today and you have a day off. We've also got Sebastian in the house. Great to see you. Tom Martin, afternoon, guys. Excited for the season ahead. Richardson is in the house. You can come watch the match with myself and Jack and teach us the pigeon celebration if that's what you want to do, my man. We've also got Mordar in the house. Predict Fiskovic, Abbott, Donnelly to look strong in preseason. Donnelly is a player I really hope we get to see in there. You know, he gets a chance this preseason. And we also have Harmless Potato. Good morning, all. And Richardson says, I love this channel. I love your accent. Please show the match live. Can't show any of the matches live, unfortunately. If you do, this channel will be taken straight down off YouTube and never to be seen again. And that's due to YouTube, not us. So, unfortunately, can't show the games live. I do apologize for that. And then we also have Tony Southfield. Yay, game day. Missed this with you guys. Hit the like. Really appreciate that. We also have Willie Hoolander in the house. Come on, you Spurs. What an absolute great name. But, guys, let's get straight into it. This is what the people are here for. Jack, I'll start with you. The Thomas Frank era starts now. How pumped are you for the new season under the boss? And what kind of identity do we expect Frank to bring to Tottenham Hotspur? Oh, you're on mute again, Jacko. Need another sip of your coffee.
Honestly.
Nope. Oh, no, maybe it's actually his mic's gone. We'll give him time to sort that out.
All right.
Yeah, we'll give him time to sort that out. We'll go to you, Drewski.
Do you know what? I really don't know. I don't know what to expect. I was talking last night on Spurs Diehards, and we sort of broke down and mentioned that, you know, during a season, you'll watch Spurs at least 38 times, a couple of cups. You know, I mean, I watched Man United 4 times last year just because we played them 4 times. But that's kind of, other than highlights and bits and pieces, do you know what I mean? I don't go out of my way to watch 90 minutes of other football teams unless you know, it's been pumped up or billed as like a really good game or it's high scoring. So I'm not entirely sure how Brentford have really set up in the past. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces, but then also when you take into account the fact that I don't know that you can really, like I think you were just about to allude to, I don't think you can necessarily look at that and then say that that's what he's going to do here, because we've been led to believe, and he's happy to say that, you know, he's got great players that he's working with. You could argue that the players are a level above what he's been used to. So I'm wondering, you know, if he himself is, I don't want to say tinkering, but he himself is probably looking at the squad, and, you know, today being a wonderful day to do it, and seeing what he can do to adjust the way that he wants the team to play. So, and this is kind of why I think maybe, and that's not to say if we'd have kept Ange, it wouldn't have been a big risk, and, you know, probably would have gone to shit. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. But like, this is why it's kind of a big risk, because I think he's, and maybe it's, you know, it's a good risk. I'm excited, but he's going to be learning on, I guess, I think new ways of being able to implement styles that he wants to implement. So yeah, I'm really interested to see the identity. I think the identity thing's big. We've mentioned it in the chat a couple of times already. I think he's going to cater. I think he's still going to line up the squad to, or the team on any given day to play, to beat the opposite, or to harness our strength against the opposition's weakness, kind of thing. You know, it was sometimes it might be 5 at the back, it might be a 5-3-2, 3-4-3 kind of hybrid. You're going to see players in areas of the pitch doing different things to what we saw them do with Ange. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I can't nail down exactly what's going to happen. I think we all need to hold on a little bit. It's going to be exciting, but I think we also need to have that little bit of patience, right? Because we've been all pivot, no patience recently. And we need to just, like, if this doesn't go well in the first 10 games, we can't be getting on this guy's back, because we all ultimately want the same thing, right?
Yeah. People will get on his back though after 10 games if he's not winning games. That's for sure, they will. But
well, I'm not being funny, dude. If we spend 200-300 million on talent that we, you know, supposed to elevate us, and we bring in this guy, and after 10 games he's not getting a tune out of him, then, you know, maybe he wasn't the guy. But I don't think that will be the case. I don't think that will be the case.
No, look, part of me thinks Thomas Frank will do well enough, you know, in his first season. I think most managers in the first season at Tottenham tend to have a decent campaign. And I think you're absolutely spot on. You know, and this is something I was saying when we hired the guy. He's never going to copy and paste what he done at Brentford and bring it to Tottenham Hotspur. There was always going to be a case where he's going to have to adapt and play more on the front foot. I do get what you're saying, where, you know, he will look to go at the opposition, but I'm hoping that's more identifying their weaknesses and looking to attack that, rather than, obviously there's going to be a couple of games where you're going to have to set up to negate the opposition, but I'm hoping a lot of it will be identifying their weaknesses and going after it. But what I think he can bring from Brentford is that defensive structure, you know, the defensive structure from the set pieces and stuff like that. Because if he can help us stop shipping the amount of goals we did last season, that'll automatically end up putting more points on the board, more wins on the board and stuff like that. Then it's all down to, how can Thomas Frank set Tottenham up going forward? And does he have the quality? Now, they have brought in more Kudos, which I think will go a long way to helping the guy. And if you bring in Morgan Gibbs-White as well, a guy that can get on the ball, spread it around a bit, again, I think that will massively help him going forward, because my biggest fear was giving him the exact same front line we gave Ange and go make that work, because I don't think it was ever really going to work like that. So, yes, it's a bit of an unknown, but I am hoping that Thomas Frank brings that defensive structure. And if he can implement that at Tottenham, because it's the quickest and easiest thing he can implement at Tottenham, then it's just about working on what he wants to do in terms of patterns of play and going forward and shit like that. But Jack, we'll give it another attempt to get you back in. Frank was asked about his principles in his pre-match press conference. He said, "I'm very clear on my principles. I want to see the team be brave, aggressive, and attack. Brave is linked to dare is to do. If you are not brave, it is very difficult to achieve anything. Being aggressive is very important, and of course, we need to attack." How confident are you, Jack, that Frank can get Spurs playing that football that we've all been crying out for? Or are we back to the same old argument? Style doesn't matter when it comes to Tottenham fans. We just got to win games of football.
Hard to say, like with Thomas Frank, really, because I think his version of being brave is on both sides of the ball, really. I think it's being brave defensively and being brave going forward, because that's what you kind of think about with that Brentford team. You know, they did find ways to score a lot of goals, but it wasn't necessarily the, I don't know, like easy on the eye, you know, beautiful football all the time. It was, you know, versions of very, you know, deliberate, direct, counter-attacking football, set pieces, you know, different ways, you know, to try to score. You know, he spoke about, you know, at Brentford, they would try to score inside like the first minute or two, right? They were one of the best teams in the league at that. He's a guy that likes to think outside the box, but also I think he was brave in plenty of games defensively where you would see pretty much every player behind the ball, you know, build a very difficult shape that was hard to break down. I remember them being one of the more annoying teams to have to break down, just because it felt like every single one of their players were like robots, you know, in that shape that they would, you know, eventually. Well positioned, hardworking. You know, there wasn't really anybody that you would point out that didn't seem like they didn't believe in what they were doing. Even, I mean, we're talking about good players here, like guys like Mbumo, guys like Wisa, guys like even Ivan Toney. You would see them all track back, you know, form a certain shape, you know, make it hard, you know, to try to break them down. So I think he meant brave in kind of both aspects of it. Whereas with maybe Ange Postecoglou, for example, was probably more brave in just what he wanted to do going forward. Maybe for the most part, that's what he probably had to say. So I did find Thomas Frank funny though when he even said that a lot of that sort of stuff he was talking about that you mentioned in those quotes. He even said at the end of the day they are buzzwords, right? You know, it's kind of about what you do end up doing on the pitch. A lot of it is all talk, and today's the day for us to actually see it, you know, manifested in person. But on the first question as well, Dave, apologies for hopefully mic issues get a little bit better.
No.
But I'm just excited that this was, you know, a Hotspur summer. This was going to be a season where, in my opinion, the tension, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but the tension for me is kind of lifted off my shoulders off of the back of winning such a huge and magnificent trophy. I just feel like Drew has mentioned this before. I think I've mentioned this before. We were waiting for that trophy for so long, so everyone was at each other's throats at plenty of times just because we wanted to get it over the line. And I don't think that should be the case this season. I think everybody is, to a degree, kind of a bit more at ease. And the only thing that makes it maybe a bit spicier is that, you know, Thomas Frank is the new manager. Like, we decided to sack the manager that had won us and delivered us that trophy. And then we said, do you know what? I think this guy can do even better technically than the guy that had won us that trophy. So in true Spurs fashion, a season where I had said I'd be happy clapping all season, wouldn't really care what the results are. Now all of a sudden they've kind of drawed me back in because we have a new manager that we have to dissect and have to understand and get around. So in true Spurs manner, Dave, we are going to try to, you know, take every game as it comes and figure out a whole new man, a whole new perspective, a whole new playing style. So it's going to be really interesting. Like I said, I was getting ready to happy clap all season and not really care what was going to happen. But now that we have a whole new manager, I'm not even sure if I can say that as much. I will be in good spirits. I won't be as tense as I probably was the previous, you know, seasons. But that's what I'm looking forward to. And I liked that Thomas Frank. I know I'm all over the place on this question, but Thomas Frank, I love that he even mentioned that it's all buzzwords at the end of the day. You know, it's about what we do on the pitch, which I did love.
No, 100%. At the end of the day, it's all about winning games of football. You win games of football, people will be happy. But, like, you know, look, with Postecoglou, I think maybe the big thing coming into the season, I think there would have still been a lot of the irritants around the guy if he was still in charge. You know, a lot of the doom and gloom merchants around the guy. Whereas I think now with Thomas Frank, I just think gets people weirdly, but dreaming and believing again, especially in terms of domestic football. So it'll be interesting to see what Frank can do there. Archer says, big up, guys, with Frank. It's all about marginal gains. Did you see that throw-in audition in training the other day? Honestly, this one thing I do like about Frank, you know, and this one, I've listened to a lot of Brentford players in years gone by doing interviews, and, you know, they were all on set pieces for attacking and defensive set pieces. Again, an area of the game that maybe a lot of people don't pay too much attention to, that Frank does and sees, you know, as massive opportunities to be able to win games and stuff like that. So it is about the marginal games, the long throw-ins, all that sort of stuff. I am going to be glad to see us sort of get to grips with the basics again, to be quite honest. These are the basics of football, your set pieces and stuff like that. Shouldn't be hard to defend them, and it shouldn't be hard to get a routine to be able to whip a good ball in and get people after it. It's not difficult. We have made it look difficult at Tottenham, and these are little things I am looking forward to, is the structure around the defensive set pieces, being able to get on them, because under Ange Postecoglou with set pieces, it was just getting to the point where the ball come in straight away. It was one of their players on the end of it every single time. So these are areas of the game that I'm looking forward to just being solid again. Solid, because amount of goals we conceded from set pieces. It'd be interesting to see how many games we actually dropped or how many points we actually dropped from them. So this is an area that I'm looking to be excited from Frank by. And I know it sounds stupid, but just the bread and basics of football, your bread and butter, it's just nice to be solid at them. Yeah. Stevie, Thomas Frank was known for getting the best out of these players at Brentford. Do you think he can get more out of these Spurs players than what Postecoglou did? And if so, why? What would be the key to unlocking this squad's potential? Because one thing I heard last season continuously is, minus the new signings, this squad is a lot better than what it was shown on the pitch. So do you think Thomas Frank will get more out of these? Because this is the whole idea about bringing them in, right?
Yeah, 100%. But before I get into that, I do want to say that the biggest reason why I have a tremendous amount of respect for Thomas Frank is his ability to gamble on himself. There was a reason why he put it out there to the media that he's never been sacked before in his career. And it's the ability to have supreme confidence in himself. And the fact that he was asked pointedly about some of the great managers that we had that failed at Tottenham Hotspur, did not even come close to even coming into his decision-making process. The guy was willing to gamble on himself in order to become a better coach. And I actually have a tremendous amount of respect for those type of people that are willing to do that, even though that even better managers than him failed before him. And so from that standpoint, me personally, I respect those type of guys, because as somebody that has had to do it multiple times in his life, I understand exactly what it takes in order to get over. And so I absolutely love Thomas Frank for that, because I find it absolutely genuine. And I think he's potentially the right guy for this coach. But I will say that from the standpoint of his CV, his track record is player development at an extremely high level. The ability to be able to develop and then kick players onto higher leagues is something that he is absolutely known for. And when you look at the construction of the team, of how it is, and especially when you talk about the senior players that are on the periphery of their own national teams, Dominic Slanky, James Madison, Jed Spence, and some of these players that probably want to be included in their respective World Cup rosters, having a guy like Thomas Frank being able to put them in positions to play to their strengths and be able to not only kick on from what we were able to do attack wise last year, but also bring him to that next level is something that I think these guys are clamoring.
Can I ask you a follow-up question on that, Steve, just quickly? Because Frank, has got the reputation of being able to develop players. Yeah. But I'm still a bit weary on that. How much of that is actually down to the Brighton owners' model, the scouting model, because he has had a lot of success with it, and his business basically, he set up, he's in gambling. Basically, he set up a company that, evaluates all the odds and finds weaknesses in the odds and stuff like that, and professional gamblers pay for it and lump on. He's brought a similar model to the scouting department in football. He's basically used that model and acclimatized it to the transfer market in football. And I'm just trying to wonder, is it a case where it was just a good pairing of the scouting department and Thomas Frank, or, how much of it is actually down to the scouting department identifying the undervalued players in the market? Because that's what it's designed to do.
100%. But I would also add that the last thing you want to do is, and we saw this under Ange Postecoglou, to certain players that, were brought in that were essentially, square pegs into a round hole. And I would probably assume that even if they were undervalued commodities on the world market, they're still going to have skill sets that fit the manager. And so from that standpoint, you can take a rough prospect and still be able to develop in the mold of how a manager wants to play the game of football. And I would assume that, that was the big question, right? Coming from Brentford to Tottenham, are Tottenham aware of the system that was in place with Brentford and whether or not that was going to be a fit from point A to point B? Because we had seen this before in the history of Tottenham, where you're getting a specific manager that plays a specific style of football, and it didn't work out Tottenham because they didn't do their legwork in identifying exactly what made them successful at their previous stop. Right. So from that standpoint, that question is still unanswered in my book. And only time will tell to see if that's going to actually work out for Thomas Frank at Tottenham. But that being said, when you're out there scouting, the first thing you want to do is make sure that that player is going to be able to adapt into the environment of what a manager wants to play. Which he wants to play.
I would just quickly add, Dave, that I think Brentford have done an exceptional job of bringing in very, very talented players. You look at Tony, Wisa, and Bumo. They've had good goalkeepers there, and David Rea, Flecken. I'd also say they've had exceptionally average players as well that he's made, actually look probably a lot better than they actually are. Like he brought Ben Mee in, during,
That's
what looks like the end of his time. He's made Ben Mee look exceptional. He's made Ethan Pinnock look exceptional. I love Ethan Pinnock, but let's be honest, the guy is, just classic, comes from the National League all the way through to the Premier League, and has still looked amazing. Would he look amazing under a different manager? I'm not sure. He's had guys like Janelt or Vitaly Janelt, that German guy. He's so bang average, if not worse than bang average. Even I wonder with the whole Christian Norgard signing, I'm amazed that people are saying how did Arsenal get Norgard? Why weren't we after him? It's he's not even the best midfielder in the Danish national team. Højbjerg, in my opinion, is a better midfielder than Norgard at the end of the day. So I just think it's almost like Thomas Frank has done an amazing job at what is it? Frank Onyeka, they have a lot of just average players in that team that he's made to look. Even Jensen, Jensen is I think a good player. Is he someone that you would pay 30-40 million for? I don't think so. I think he's good because Thomas Frank has made him look very good. So it's a mix of really, really good players that he has developed into becoming very good players.
Yeah.
But he's also made exceptionally average players look very good as well.
I mean, the one thing I will say, boys, just off of the back of that is, we need to be very aware of the fact that he's also had the better part of 9 years to nurture an ethos, and he's had time to bring in the players that he wanted to, and he's had the better part of 4 or 5 days on a training ground to instill all of this into them. And he's now, and fair play to the guy, he's now taken himself out of that and put himself into a position where he's going to be on the training ground 2, maybe 3 times a week. So he's got to instill a lot of things into these players early doors so we can hit the ground running. And I guess that's kind of where the concern comes from. And as I say, I respect the guy. Absolutely. The fact that he's prepared to take it on. The guy's clearly intelligent. The guy clearly knows what he's doing. So he's looked at it. He's gone, well, all right, if I can bring my staff and he's obviously had the conversations. If I can bring in 2-3 real top class players, then maybe we can do it. Maybe we can make this work. But that's the unknown quantity. We're talking as if the guy's been doing this week in, week out. And he kind of hasn't. So I've got all the optimism in the world, but that's just something that I wanted to sort of, while we were on the point.
Yeah, that is one of my big concerns. And we'll let Stevie back in, is the fact that, at Brentford, he had 5 days a week on the training ground to implement what you want to do against the opposition and work on these guys and develop them. At Tottenham, when you're flying all across Europe midweek, and if you're not, you're going down to the likes of fucking Rochdale and places like that, he's not going to have that time. So how much development, how much are we going to see these players develop at Tottenham when the schedule is a lot more quicker at Tottenham?
Right.
I almost feel like he's going to have to streamline his process, and I think that's what's going to either make a success of him or a failure of him. The processes that he has in place, can he streamline them to match a juggernaut like Tottenham?
Yeah, and to that point, Dave, because that's where I was going next for me, and I don't know how you guys feel, but the testament to Thomas Frank in year one isn't necessarily going to be the development of the young prospects that have high ceilings, although that is important. It's going to be, is he going to be able to straighten out some of the senior players that had massive inconsistency issues over the last couple of years that led to the downfall of this team. Now, granted, yes, we won a trophy, but there were still issues with inconsistency, right? If he's able to straighten those guys out in year one, that is what's going to lead this team to more trophies. It's not going to be the development of the Archie Grays and Lucas Bergvalls. That's important, but it's also making sure that Dominic Solanke, James Madison, Brendan Johnson, Pedro Porro, Destiny Udogie are from week to week are putting out consistent performances that are going to lead to what we expect, which is more trophies.
No, 100%. Look, I'm going to give Frank every chance. And look, I think the fact that he's brought some of his coaching staff with him actually helps him implement what he's trying to do. Maybe when he does streamline that process, actually get it across, rather than having to come in and coach the coaches to get them to do what you want to do, which is effectively what Ange had to do to a large degree. Thomas Frank has staff that already know what he's looking to do to a large degree, and already, staff that he's used before that have been able to implement it with great success at Brentford. So it gives them every chance. So let's wait and see. I want to take a couple of chats, and I want to welcome in the guy that's been working hard and feeding the nation. As you can see, the colours written all over his face, how hard he's been working to feed the nation. We've got El Dante in the house, member for 11 months. Big up all. Come on, you Spurs. Hope all is well. All is good, my man. It's match day. No Kulu involved today, though, El Dante. We'll have to wait a little bit yet to see our big guy back in action. Dermatron says, we are Tottenham TV debut for the North London Derby game. Come on, you Spurs. Well, big up, Dermatron. Hopefully you enjoy yourself over there. Look, big fan of the two boys over there. Really like them. And, make sure you enjoy yourself on the pre-match pump-ups, The guy, I'm the one that started them all, and you're the one taking it over. Big up, Dermatron. We've got J-Mac, in my opinion, against the lesser teams, we will be more aggressive, and against the better teams, or more conservative with adjustments for each team. We've got PB and Jam. Hope you're all well, guys. Are you doing a watch-along for the game? That we are, my man. You don't need to worry. We'll be doing a watch-along for every game this season. I want to say a big shout-out to my guy, DJ AK. Good to see you, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Blaine Devlin in the house. Big up, Blaine. Great to see you. Hopefully you've enjoyed your summer to the maximum, my man. It says, morning, laddies. I thought it said ladies for a minute. I was going to say, do you know what's 2025? I wake up and feel like one. I can't be one, but he says, morning, laddies. It's a heck of a day for sport. Lions on. Absolutely. I've been watching all the friendlies on the build up to this. Didn't know you were a big fan of the Lions, Blaine. Good to see that. He says the Open is on, and then boxing later. I do love a bit of boxing and UFC myself. Oh, and Frank's first game. Come on, you Spurs. Pretty sure there's some GAA action today as well at some point as well. So, or is that tomorrow? But either way, we've got a great day of sport lined up, Blaine. So for me, I think that's a day on your couch, or if you're lucky enough, out in your conservatory, if you've got one of them with the TV and everything on, feet up, few beers, good food. Enjoy your day, Blaine. Good to see you. We also have Chimney Gore. I think this match won't show too much of Frank, as I think they still haven't practiced and mastered the new tactical principles yet. I agree. It's not everything's going to be ironed out, but at least we'll get a glimpse to see what he's trying to implement and what he's trying to do to a large degree. We've got Eugene in the house. Eugene Kaladeva. Sounds good, especially the way I pronounced it. Long throw-ins into the box can be very dangerous and create scoring opportunities. That's absolutely spot on. Sometimes it's just good to go direct one. Sometimes you don't need to do all this flapping about and make 20 passes and look pretty. Sometimes it's as simple as launching that fucking ball in the box and saying to Solanke, go and get your noggin on the end of it. Sometimes football can be that simple. That's what was driving me mad last year. Sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, guys, football really isn't a difficult game. Really isn't a difficult game. We make it look hard at Tottenham. J-Mac also says it's a good weapon as long as it's not the main weapon, and that's absolutely spot on. We have to be able to show that we can go forward and play football as well, and not just, what we want to be is a good, solid footballing team with all these extra weapons, basically.
Well, you know what's funny? You know what's funny, Dave? And I'm not trying to throw shade on Ange at all in any way, but it could just be that the squad are actually sitting there going, thank God. back to some normal shapes and not having to do some of the stuff that we were asked to do. Like they could just genuinely be like, back to normal football.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You know
Just
what I've
throwing that
learned
out there.
Maybe they do want to sit back every now and again.
You know what I've learned though at my time with Tottenham.
Can we just say, let's move on from Ange. He won us a European trophy.
I know. I'm not trying.
No, we are moving on.
I've been wondering whether or not Ange has been completely upset this summer, knowing that Tottenham are starting to throw money around in the market. I wonder if he's sitting back asking himself, "God damn it!"
I'd be absolutely, if I'm Ange, I'm absolutely furious seeing Kudus walk through the door. I'm like, you don't think I could have done with that? Absolutely furious. And we've got this from Q7. Great to see you, Q7. Says, salute to the panel. Hope all is good. That time of the season again when I'm a happy clapper from the excitement of a new season. Usually got bust by August, but I'm glad it's back. Do you know what? That's all of us, my man. Sometimes it's even before August, right? Sometimes it's like last preseason game. You're absolutely pulling your hair out, but good to see you, Q7. But look, let's bring in Soren. Soren, good to see you, my man.
Big up, Soren.
Yeah.
Looking at the squad that Thomas Frank has at his disposal, what defensive setup do you think makes most sense under Thomas Frank? Because I think this is one that everyone's trying to work out. Do you think it will be a back four primarily or a back three primarily as your base formation? And what do you think works better with the squad that we've got? Because we do have about, I think Dorrington's gone, so that probably brings us down to about 98 centre-backs at Tottenham Hotspur.
I mean, I'm expecting 11 centre-backs on the pitch today, but I think we've probably got to start with... the old adage that if you don't win at least 6-0, then he's got to go, hasn't it? Anything less than a 6-0 win, out the door. We don't want him anymore. Let's get it in and, get the petition and the strikes and the marches set up already. It's got to be a winning start. But no, in all seriousness, look, today's a nothing game. It's got to be a nothing game. It is. It's his first chance to see these players in some sort of formation and things like that. I'm quite excited. Look, I think we've now got a manager in that's gonna sit with these players. Is kind of an arm round the shoulders type coach. Is hands on. Look. No disrespect to Ange. I don't care what anybody says. He won us that trophy.
100% agree. Respect.
He got us over the line. Whether he was the right manager or not, whether you backed him or not, it doesn't matter anymore. He's gone. It's a new era. Time to get behind the new manager. There's a real buzz about the place. The fans seem to be up. There's a change at the club. And as much as we sort of sit there and say you've got to give Frank time, I don't think he's going to need time. I think he's probably the right man.
Though, Soren, this is a myth. Like, you don't get time at Tottenham Hotspur if you're not winning games. No. Look at Nuno. You're bounced out the door by October. It's that simple. We can sit here and say about time, and it sounds luxurious. And at the end of the day, when you look at some of the clubs we're trying to chase, you do have to have that continuity in the dugout if you really want to go at the Premier League and some of the domestic cups. But the reality is, he's got to win games. He's got to hit the ground running.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we always say it doesn't matter what you do in pre-season because it's the first game of the season that's the important thing, and then it's the second, then it's the third, then it's the fourth. These pre-season games, we've done it before where we've won we've won them all. We've won a trophy in the pre-season, and then we've gone on and been shit in the season. So it doesn't make a difference. The only thing you want to see is some sort of idea on the pitch that the players seem to know what they're doing, that they're understanding what the manager's asking them. And I think with Thomas Frank he is that manager that's quite likable. He's shown that he's been at a club for a number of years. He's developed players, he's improved players, and that was one thing that a lot of criticism came from Ange that he didn't improve players really. So hopefully now we're going to see a manager that will improve these players. He will put his arm around them. He will be a little bit more adept with tactics on the pitch. You're going to see a manager, that the most important thing, he's probably going to wave his hands a little bit, so it'll please some fans out there. He's not going to stand with his hands folded, so somebody will be happy. It's just exciting, isn't it? And
yeah,
it's we're already, as much as it's a friendly, it's the first game of the season. It's back already, and we kind of went from the highs of actually signing a player to trying to sign a second player to suddenly getting
it's killed our market.
The shit kicked out of our transfer window. It's just a Tottenham pre-season, isn't it? It's everything we expect and everything we love about Tottenham. But yeah, a couple of hours time, we'll be kicking off, and even though it's a friendly, we're all going to be excited. The nerves are there. It's going to be interesting to see, and it's actually nice to have a proper pre-season because let's not beat about the bush. The last 2 pre-seasons we've had under Ange haven't been full pre-seasons with the squad. This is the first one for a number of years, so let's hope we hit the ground running and into next season. And yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting season.
Do you know what I also think helps, Frank, as well? The fact that it's a World Cup year. There's going to be so many players playing for their position in that World Cup. So I think automatically, you will see maybe an improved level of performances from certain players. You probably see a full season out Romero this year and stuff like that, But being the World Cup year, I think it gives Frank huge opportunity to get going because the players are already, to a large degree, self-motivated because they know what's coming up at the end of the year. Just want to welcome in a couple more guys here. Leighton Evelyn, good to see you back. Do you know what? It wouldn't be a season without having my negative Nancy beside me, Leighton Evelyn, or the eternal But good to see you, Leighton. Great to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Why don't you ever come on and speak to me again? I spoke to you years ago. I know you're from Wales and that, but come on and speak to me again, my man. Let's have some fun with it. A big up Rudy too. Hopefully you're keeping well as well. Good to see you back. He says Bayern are asking 26 million for Paulinho. Shouldn't we bite the hand off at that price? I wonder if they still owe us any money towards Harry Kane. Just knock that down and bring in Paulinho. Honestly, that guy just used to foul and get no booking until 90 minutes. So I could do with someone like that at Tottenham Hotspur.
He would for us. You can guarantee if he was playing for us, if he sent off first. He'd probably just run past the player and he'd be sent off.
Him and Romero be tackling each other and getting both sent off. We don't need that.
And Kudos as well, probably jumping in for a little bit of an argy-bargy. Morgan Gibbs White, when he comes, he'll lay it in, and we'll be down to 7 men straight away.
And if we keep Basuma, he'll probably come on to try and shore things up and then go and get sent off and inhale balloons. But anyway, we've also got Faz Radfar. Good to see you, Fazzy. Hopefully you're keeping well. But look, let's get to John. John, my man, this is US dollars. Whereabouts in the USA are you from, John? Please let us know. We've got a few guys from America here on the panel. He says, here we go. Excited to see how the Thomas Frank era unfolds. Need to fill a few holes before the end of the window, and we will be okay. # come on, you Spurs. Look, this window I found largely frustrating. Earlier on the window when teams were making the marquee signings, Tottenham were sitting there sort of twiddling their thumbs. And then for like the space of 24 hours, it just heated up out of nowhere. Kudos comes in. Morgan Gibbs White release clause, triggered. Still waiting on that signing to come in. I do think it's going to get done in the end. Yeah. But I do keep urging Spurs fans after that, it's not done. Yes, we needed to fix our problems moving forward. I do think Gibbs White and Kudos, they've gone a good way of trying to alleviate them attacking problems. I do like these players. These are players that me and Jack have spoke about countless of times about we wouldn't mind seeing these guys in a Spurs jersey, but there's still more holes to fill. We still need that big number 6 in there. Even if he wants to play a 3 at the back, there is going to be times he's going to want to play 4. And if you want to play 4 and you want your fullbacks to push on, which I'm going to assume he's going to want Porro to get forward because of how good he is, you're going to need that CDM to sit in there and cover that. A bit like what Wanyama used to do in front of Toby and Jan, allowed the fullbacks. Because people make a big deal about the fullbacks going forward. Under Pochettino and not under Derby, I've seen our fullbacks practically playing right and left wing. But Wanyama sat in the middle, and that's where the CDM is absolutely crucial. And we also need another player that can play left back, behind Destiny Udogie. We can't keep going to that kid. Go out there and play 80 games a season. Last year we done the guy dirty. We got Donny to play left back, and then as soon as the season starts, we throw Udogie straight in there off the back of surgery, no preseason, and go hit the ground running and hit similar levels you left us off with. It's absolutely madness. The guy needs cover, because if not, we are going to ruin his career by the time this guy's 24. He'll end up like a Ryan Sessegnon if we keep pushing him out there. But big up, John. Hopefully you're keeping well. Like I said, get in the comments, let me know whereabouts in the USA you are from, buddy. We've also got Faz Radfar 4-1 Spurs. Big up, lads. Hope you're all well. 4-1 win guaranteed. I'm all here for it. Look, I would love to go and see us score goals today. I'd love us to see us keep a clean sheet. That would really get me excited for the Luton game coming up. And most importantly, I'd love to see Mo Kudos just get on the ball and absolutely rinse people. That Maverick player, that player that just does stuff off the cuff that no one's expecting. We missed that last year. Last year was all about pass. Great. Yeah, sometimes you want to keep possession, but I'm one of them guys, possession with a purpose. Putting Kudos in there, he gives you a bit of purpose. And then we've also got Shawnee Maddox. Big up, Shawnee. Hope you like my message yesterday. I did have to get a welfare check on you because, I know you're a big fan of stability, and Thomas Frank has sort of come in and negated all of that, saying that he is going to play this lovely, delicious attacking football more primarily for me to keep me, sane. But he says, it's a nothing game for Frank, but certain players' careers at Spurs will depend on showing something today. And I agree with you. I do think this is what these two friendlies, this and the Luton one before the tour, is going to be used for, is to more like the likes of your Abbotts, your Donnellys, your Mikey Moores, players like that. Thomas Frank can get a look at them in a match day environment, in his tactics, to see what they can produce. And I think it's a big day for these youngsters. I think some of these youngsters, what you can't do is go in and be brave or just play safe. No one remembers playing safe, and not many managers are like that, especially the forward guys. If you get that ball, take on your man, put balls in the box, try pop shots. That's what gets fans excited, and that's what will make you stick out in the manager's brain. So I think, Shawnee, today and Luton next Saturday is going to be huge for some of these younger members of the squad. Absolutely crucial. Big up, Shawnee Maddox. Good to see you in the house. Hopefully you're pumped for today's game. Guys, I do want to kick on the conversation just a little, because I do want to have a conversation around preseason. Look, many Spurs, many fans in general, football fans, say preseason is just about gaining fitness. You can't take too much note of anything else. Now, me personally, I think that's a bit of an old school mentality, because, back in the day, players used to go off and enjoy themselves, party and stuff. So it was literally coming back and just getting your fitness back. Whereas it's supreme athletes now. They're already in shape and they're already fit coming back into preseason, unless they've had an injury that they're carrying, like a Dragusin, a Kulu, and a Madison. But after last season, we saw our youngsters, they were often our best players in the friendlies, and that correlated directly into the season. Coming out of the season, a lot of people sort of praised the younger members of the squad for stepping up. Son and Madison and others struggled to find their rhythm in preseason, and that correlated for a good part of the early part of the season. And Son, most of the season, people would argue. Kulusevski and Spence were our best senior players last preseason, and that form correlated into the season for large parts with Kulusevski up until his injury. Jed Spence was probably one of our, best fringe players of the season as well, to a large degree. And I'd also say, we had a lack of clinical edge last preseason, and to a degree that also transcended into the season for large parts. A lot of preseason, we only played one half of football, and again, that sort of transcended into the season. So what I'm trying to say is, could fans be underestimating the importance of having a good preseason, Jack? Do you think, and anyone wants to come in off the back of that, do you think maybe that we can now start taking direct correlations from what we're seeing in preseason heading into the season?
You brought up so many good examples that, in a sense, were kind of omens for how the actual season ended up unfolding. Even one of them was the fact that, against teams like Bayern Munich, we got absolutely walloped. And then that ended up kind of manifesting itself against other teams in the Premier League, to some extent, where we just were getting absolutely done over, where Ange Postecoglou's tactics were kind of getting a little bit picked out, but also just even the team in general just didn't look like they were good enough against maybe teams of that sort of caliber. What I also would maybe add to your list of very good reasons for why you should take preseason relatively seriously is this is the only time period that Thomas Frank has to actually work with the squad, day in, day out, without any interruptions with other games. I think it was brought up before by Drew, but this is, a situation that Thomas Frank is unfamiliar with. He's going to have the Champions League, domestic cups, Premier League, all to compete for. He even said himself, came from the horse's mouth, that they are looking to compete in all the competitions this season, right? And this is the only time period he has to really work on things, to really fine-tune things. He's going to have to in a sense, teach everybody from scratch, what he believes in, what sort of principles he's trying to instill, the shape, the defensive shape, the attacking shape, various things he's going to have to get done in a sense, a pretty quick sort of few weeks here. So you could argue that the preseason games should absolutely be taken seriously for that reason, because can he really work on, the attacking structure? Can he really work on the defensive shape, in real sort of, concentrated modes, when we're in the middle of a Champions League campaign, when we're in the middle of, Premier League game after Premier League game? Like, the beginning stages of the season are the only time period you really have as a manager at a top football club where you are expected to compete on all fronts to actually, sort of work on things. So this is, in a way, the opportunity, Dave, for us to see the team, actually develop and work on things and understand things and make mistakes. This is the only time period that we can really watch them, sort of make mistakes without any real consequences. But your list there was very comprehensive for all of the omens that we ended up seeing, later on in the season, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wonder, as it changed, because I think the old school mentality again is players come back for fitness, but they all come back fit. And I just, a lot of people just say you can't take out preseason. And just when I thought back about it last season and thought back about the preseason, and then I'm thinking about how the season unfolded. If you did take stuff out of preseason, you could almost predict the season that was going to become upon us. I mean, Stevie, you're nodding your head. You want to come in?
Yeah, here's the interesting thing, because I think you mentioned earlier in the show is the fact that, for senior players, this is an opportunity just to kind of get their legs back and be in a situation where they can, be reintroduced to some of these guys, get their footing under a new manager, just kind of get the momentum going in the right direction. But in isolation with certain positions, there's going to be some certain young players that are going to want to plant their flag, understanding that there are names that are going to be coming through the door at that position. So guys like Jamie Donnelly, guys like Alfie Devine, that are probably going to be given an opportunity, to really impress. Right. That's, that is the, for me, at least at certain positions, that is what this preseason is all about. Right. And I think you mentioned it earlier, is just, shaping up the peripheral of the first team. There are going to be guys that want to be a part of the squad this season, which is why today, especially, essentially putting themselves on the front foot and, and essentially saying, hey, listen, regardless of who's coming through the door, I can facilitate a role for you moving forward. Right. That's what these preseason games mean for me. Maybe even secondary strikers like, Dane Scarlett and Will Lancashire being able to get there and actually score a couple of goals throughout the course of these first two preseason matches, and saying, you know what, check this out, man. Yeah, you can put me on loan, but I think I might be able to, play well for you this season. So for me, this is not necessarily about the senior players. It's about those players that are coming back on loan that actually, want to be a part of this.
Fair. And look, that primarily, I think that's again what these couple of games are going to be used for. These players coming back off loan and stuff like that. I just think with some of the senior players, I think because last season, everyone, like when I was going mad about, some of the senior players and how shit they were preseason, everyone said, calm down. But then you go into the season, sort of just transcended, sort of just continued on that funk, that slump. And that's where I say, maybe we could look at this preseason, and if we have a good preseason, go, do you know what, we're in for a good season. If we have a dicey preseason, I'm sort of worried about the season. I mean, Drew, Soren, any you want to come in on that?
Go on, Soren.
Don't know about my hand off at once.
I think he might be on mute.
Yeah, he's on mute.
He might be on mute.
Yeah,
you're on mute, Soren.
On mute. Yeah.
Bloody amateurs.
Bloody amateur.
I just think pre-season, it's one of those, you try a few things, you experiment and see what comes off. I think, like a few people are saying, I'd like to see a three at the back, straight off from the kickoff, a couple of youngsters in there, and just see what happens. And look, just keep changing formation through the game. Just try lots of different things. It's we've said it before. We've had a great preseason, or we've had a poor preseason, and then the exact opposite form going into the league. So I just want to see. I don't care if we win or lose in preseason. I want to see some effort from the team. I want to see the fact that the team are trying things, or that they're looking at different things. You know, and you can see progress from what we didn't want before to what we want now. So as long as there's progress and as long as things look like they're going in the right direction, yeah, we all want to win. You know, it's brilliant if you can go into your games and things like that and win. And look, the most important thing for these pre-season games now, especially when you've got a new manager, is making sure that the team is fit, making sure that they all understand what they're supposed to be doing. It doesn't matter about the performances, the wins, the loses, as long as the team understand what they are doing going into that first game of the season. That's all that counts. And you know, they understand what the manager's asking, they believe in what the manager's asking, and they're behind him. And that's all we can ask.
I think that's a big one. Understanding what the manager is asking them to do, or having a good grasp of it. I think, you know, when you think on pre-season last season, how many Spurs players had the understanding of what they were trying to do in pre-season, and maybe that did sort of directly go into the season. So I think you are absolutely spot on there. It is about, as long as we can see there's a good grasp and a good to a large degree, a good execution of what the manager is asking them to do, I think that will probably ease my concerns heading into the season. Drewski, do you want to come in on that before we move on, my man, or we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like at the moment the management of the squad is so important, and I mean, just mentioning from earlier the fact that, you know, there's a couple of players. I mean, it might not be everybody, but I think there's a few players in that dressing room, or a few players in pre-season, that have just taken a deep breath. And as I say, that's not to take a pop at the previous manager, but the likes of your Porro and your Udogie are more naturally wing back players. That's what their bread and butter was. They've been asked to and been learning how to become left backs for the last couple of years, essentially since they got to the club, because they got bought in for a manager who then left pretty shortly after, and we sort of changed everything. So I'm wondering if you're going to see maybe a little bit of a new lease of life with a couple of, especially the likes of Porro and Udogie, who are going to be, I think, now asked to do their more natural, or play their more natural game. The one thing I think I've been sort of made aware of is that Frank has had a tendency before to do the sort of Pochettino thing, like you mentioned, where whether it's a Wanyama, whether it was an Eric Dyer, whether it was a Moussa Dembele at times, you had the split centre backs. One would drop in, and you'd have your left and right back, your wing backs, whatever you want to call them, bombing on. And I just think, that's the sort of thing. That's the unknown for us, right? Where you're gonna see maybe players play their more natural game, and that's gonna lend itself more to maybe Frank's style of play. But just coming on to sort of the squad,
more out of Porro just on that. Do you think, with Porro maybe being asked to play the more traditional sort of version of a fullback, wingback, whatever you want to call it, do you think we'll actually see a lot more out of him as well in general? And do you think that might actually help him defensively? Because I think that's where people's problems come with it. But it's defensively sometimes he's a bit suspect.
Yeah. Well, also I think as well, it's been talked about that he does. Frank likes to shift. He'll play, for example, would play like a Van der Ven at left back, and then two centre backs, and then Porro. But then the actual game shape, they'll all shift over and make a back three, and Porro would essentially be like an unorthodox wing back, right winger sort of hybrid. And he apparently has done that on both sides. So I can see, especially when he mentions Porro having Trent-like abilities, I mean, you can just kind of see his mind going, And I mean, the hope is that if Porro is left a little bit free, I mean, he's one of the guys in the team that can put a ball on a blade of grass, right?
Yeah.
So if he doesn't have to worry so much about the ball over his shoulder in between that channel between him and Romero, and if Romero, hits the ground running this season, because let's not beat around the bush. To be in the last season, he might have been fit, but he was shocking. Like those first 2, 3, 4 games that we played. I mean, the Arsenal game, he was pretty much at fault for the goal that we conceded. Well. And, so I think, there's a lot of players that have got to hit the ground running. But as I say, I think they might be a little bit more comfortable playing their natural game. But the one thing just with the squad management, like we've got to be careful. And this may well end up being one of those things just like PSR was or for FFP, where we try and toe the line as much as we can while everybody else is doing whatever they want. And then the rules kind of change and we're left kind of holding our nuts. But if this whole homegrown club train thing is going to continue and going to be a thing, we need to be really careful about, because I've just heard over the last few days, it's, we need to loan this kid out and we need to loan that kid out. But those kids need 3 consecutive years to become club trained homegrown. So I just think this preseason is more about looking at that aspect of things. Right. Who can we really, really afford to go out and learn their craft? And who do we really need to keep here to make sure we get that quota? Right. Because if it is important, or, we're continually losing out on the opportunity of naming 2 or 3 more players in a squad, then I think we're always going to be a little bit hamstrung, and we're always going to be 1 or 2 injuries away potentially from it all going to shit again. So I think he really needs to, and his coaching staff really need to look at who's worth letting go, who's really, really worth putting time into.
Absolutely.
So I'm not too worried about the performance. I mean, obviously, like I say, I'd love to see a couple goals. I'd love to see, some play, and we're all going, oh, this is it. This is what it's going to be. But the most important thing is for him to get his head around what weapons he's got and what tools he needs to get rid of.
I do agree with you in terms of, the club trained aspect. That is an aspect that we do have to fix going forward. We can't keep going around in this circle where we're bringing in 6 goalkeepers and registering them all and paying people just to be on a register. It's absolutely insane. We have to fix that problem going forward. And with the amount of young players coming through that academy, with the amount of talent they have, if we don't bring 3 or 4, there needs to be an absolute inquest in what's going on with this football club, because you've got players of Mikey Moore, Donnelly, Dorrington, you've got Olasesi coming through, Williams Barnett coming through, you still got Therese Hall there and players like that. Jai's gone out on loan and stuff, but we need 4 for the European registration, and it is about time that we start maybe putting our faith in these youngsters, because what we end up doing is, like Drew says, hamstringing our squad. Then all of a sudden Mandra gets injuries, and then he's absolutely fucked, and then he turns around, oh, Forrester, can you play left back? It's absolutely madness. You can't keep doing that. We've got to start sorting out this problem. I think we're absolutely spot on. I think this is why it's important to look at some of these kids over the next 2 days and 2 games. And I really mean look at them. My hoping is that with Postecoglou, look, he wasn't known for being a developer of youth players, so to speak. He wants to come in and win trophies now. I do hope that Frank, this time around, will seriously take a look at some of these guys and go, do you know what? He can add something. Because, me and Jack were speaking the other day, and I was saying, it almost irks me a little bit that Tottenham didn't bring back Josh Keeley and decided to buy Kinski, that they didn't bring back, Donnelly out on loan, considering how well he was doing, the injuries that we had, the lack of creativity, and give them the opportunity. And I'm hoping Frank will be a lot braver in that aspect. And I know you out there, Shawnee Maddox, is as well. I just want to say big up to Geoff Tottenham. He's got a massive surgery coming up in a week's time. So if people see him about, can you please just try and remember it and wish him the best of luck. He is currently in hospital, so stay safe, my man. Big up, Geoff. We've got Skunkworks. Good to see you, Skunky. Great to see you back, my man. He says, are Forest playing today or tomorrow? Interesting to see if any movement on Morgan Gibbs-White this weekend. I believe they're flying out to pre-season tour on Monday, and that Gibbs-White wants this sorted out before they fly out. I'm hoping Gibbs-White doesn't turn up for the plane if they're trying to play a hardball. But then some people are saying today that there's rumors that Daniel Levy's willing to pay an extra $10 million and all to get it over the line. So look, we'll see how it unfolds, but I think, they want Morgan Gibbs-White doesn't want to go on tour, basically. So I'm hoping Monday, it may be Tuesdays when we see this accelerate a little bit. And I just want to say good to see you, Root, too, as well. He says, thank God Kyle Walker-Peters has gone to West Ham. Now the media can stop trying to pretend we want him back. Absolutely spot on, Rooty, too. Absolutely spot on, my man. Guys, I do want to kick this conversation on, and I do want to talk about captaincy. But just before we do, there is over 651 people in-house already on the build-up to this game. It's only preseason. You guys, you need to go out there and go on summer holidays or something like that. But if you can, if you're enjoying the show, you're enjoying the conversation, please smash that like button. And there's plenty of ways for you to be able to get involved. Get your comments in the chat. We'll try and bring up as many as we can. If you really want to support the channel and, make sure the comments discuss and that my eyes can't miss it, feel free to send it in the super chat. We'll get it up and we'll have a good discussion on whatever it is you want to talk about. And also, you could buy channel memberships and get involved in discussions and fan shows and all that sort of good stuff. But look, let's keep kicking on. I do want to talk about the captaincy because Thomas Frank says he will decide the where are we? Yes, so Thomas Frank says he will decide the captain, not the players. And today we'll see Romero wear the armband for one half and Son wear the armband for the other half. But based on what we've seen from both of them, lads, who feels like more of a natural leader for this team moving forward? Who falls on Romero's camp? Who falls on Sonny's camp?
Can I have a neither? Can I have a neither camp?
Yeah, that's
That's
where I was going with that as well too.
I mean, and all respect to Sonny, I've got a feeling, I even if he doesn't, I just don't know that he should be captain. But I've got a feeling he may well be gone after the Asia tour thing. I don't think Romero, and the only reason I say this, and I could be proven wrong, but I've not heard Romero utter a single word of English. And I just think you need to have, I mean, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe if the majority of the squad is Spanish or Spanish speaking, you don't. I feel like it. I just don't think either of them are it, really, to be honest with you.
So maybe throw a surprise name that you would look at the squad and go, I wouldn't mind seeing him as captain. Who do you look at as captain material in that squad?
Are you talking? Are you
Van der Ven?
Yeah, there you go.
BDV. Bit young, maybe. Bit young, bit shy.
Nah, he's probably. To be fair, he is probably a little bit young. Do you know what? This is the thing. I don't actually know, and I asked the question the other day whether if Morgan Gibbs White does actually come in, does he get given the armband almost straight away?
No,
I don't know. But I don't know who. I mean, Porro, maybe. I don't know. This is the thing. I don't know anybody in the squad that you can really just point at and go, absolutely, he's my captain. So, not sure.
I like Romero. I like the idea of having Romero captain. For me, I almost want to take it back to old school, where you just want that leader on the football pitch. And with the young squad, I think that's what's needed. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great having Son around. I think it's great, that people can go and learn and get advice off him. But I almost think this is where society gets mixed up with, what it takes to go and win in terms of sports and stuff like that. Because, it's almost gone to like, but people can go and learn off Son. Yeah, but they can go and get advice off him regardless whether he's captain or not. What you need on the football pitch is a guy that's going to front up for your club, a guy that's going to hit players. Sometimes if you're not playing well, a guy that's going to hit someone and wake people up around you, a guy that's not afraid to snarl at people. And when I talk about snarling at someone, they're that afraid of them that they won't even say boo back. That's the sort of captain, that's the sort of leader I think this young squad really needs. That's just my opinion. And I fall on the side of Romero. And this isn't a slight against Son. But I thought giving Son the captaincy, if anyone remembers, was a bad idea in the first place because I just don't think he's that sort of focal guy. And when, I'll be honest, I also think the weight of captaincy is affecting his performances to a large degree. I think it's affecting his game. Before Son could go out there, no care, play with a smile on his face. And that's when the fucker was absolutely devastating with the weight of the captaincy and all the extra burden, because it's not only on the football pitch. There's so much shit you got to do off the football pitch as a captain and all that as well, in terms of sorting out stuff for the squad and all that sort of bollocks. There's so much more to it. I almost feel like it affects Son's game. So for me, I just want to get back to having that fucking guy out there that just wants to go and hit people for the sake of the badge, to be honest with you. So for me, I'm going to fall on Romero's side. And I don't think that should come as any surprise to people when you listen to how I speak about football and stuff like that. That is the sort of side I err on. I believe you can still be silky, but have that bit of steel to you. And I think largely that's what we miss. So I'm going with Romero.
I mean, people were pretty upset at us, Dave, when we were talking about Sonny potentially, staying here for this season and onwards, because you brought up, halfway through the video, does this mean that Sonny's still going to be captain? And a lot of people are saying, how dare you, you question Sonny's captaincy. There are a lot of comments on that.
Well, I was told how dare I criticize the transfer window last year. Look how that worked out.
It was, a lot of people feel that Sonny should be the captain, but I would argue that Romero was the one that actually did captain us on the day that we did win that Europa League trophy. During that final, Romero was the one that sort of stood up, was kind of a leader, both on the pitch, off the pitch, seemed to kind of instill that winners like mentality in the team. And I agree with Drew. I think you kind of need to be a guy that, I think it is a little bit questionable, some of the things he's had to say about Daniel Levy, about the club and everything like that. Romero doesn't really hide how he feels, about anything. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. If you're a captain, I think you maybe have to show a bit more diplomacy, to be honest, but maybe that's just who he is.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to English, I think he's a guy who can speak English. There's just a thing that some people just don't really feel comfortable or really feel like they're, inclined.
There is a thing, Jack.
They don't speak English to the media is really how it is, because they just feel like, their words can be mixed up, or, the fact that it isn't their first language. They feel like then maybe things could be taken out of context. But, and especially with the way Romero talks, he really doesn't want things to be taken out of context. He says exactly how he feels.
I'm going to say, Jack, if you watch him when he gets into trouble with refs, you can't tell me he stood there talking Argentinian to an English ref. He's making his thoughts pretty clear.
He said enough things to piss off Harry Maguire, so surely he knows enough English.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of like the idea.
Harry Maguire for certain doesn't speak a word of Spanish.
I kind of like the idea of Romero getting booked and him just going, no comprende.
Exactly.
That's funny. That's funny.
I do kind of understand it though. I feel like they both have their positives and they both have their negatives, both of them as captain options. And I mean, we've not necessarily gotten it right in the past. I don't think Lloris was the right captain. I don't think Harry Kane was the right captain. I don't even know if Sonny was the right captain. So, and even to a degree, when Ange Postecoglou picked Maddison, as his captain, I really like James Maddison, but look how that, ended up falling out. Him and Ange Postecoglou were not on the same terms. And Maddison, I wouldn't really say is exactly a great captain either. He's a guy that maybe also needs to be relieved of that sort of burden. I wonder, though, in Romero's case, just final point, I wonder if Romero, if he is a better player as a captain, because he then understands the responsibility. He has to, not get sent off, or he has to also, lead by example. He has to be, a warrior out on the pitch, those sort of type of things that I wonder makes him actually a better player when he is wearing the captain's armband versus when he's not. But that would be my final point. I agree with some of the maybe reasons why maybe he shouldn't be, like Drew brought up too.
Yeah, the problem I've got with sort of Drew's example of Van der Ven being captain, we don't know what Van der Ven we're going to get this year. Look, under Postecoglou's system, he was probably one of the best style defenders for that system. He is awesome. He's phenomenal at running back and making that last ditch tackle. But whenever we saw mistakes from him, it was always playing a low line, and defending in his own box where he's looking at the players rather than chasing them. And I just don't know if he's going to be the same player this season. I hope he is, because I think he's a phenomenal player otherwise. But with the players we've got in the team now, I'm with you, Dave. I don't see past Romero, because look, the nonsense about he doesn't speak any English. We know he does speak a bit of English.
I bet if you send him to a McDonald's, he'd be able to order.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And just because he doesn't necessarily come out and speak to the media, which is probably a sensible thing in some sense, some cases, because we've seen how many times players say something and it's either misinterpreted or mistranslated, or they've said it wrong because they understand the language wrongly. But yeah, I want that snarliness. But again, changing the subject slightly towards if Morgan Gibbs-White comes in, I think he's a potential captain.
Rudy agrees with Drew on that one. I sort of shut it down, but there's many people that actually say, do you know what? He could do a job as captain.
Yeah, and he's exactly that player that we want in the Romero system, where he's a little bit snarly, he's a little bit dirty, he's not afraid to shout. But let's take it one step further. What about if we get Polino in? then, to me, he's the obvious one. He's got the experience. He's sitting in that defensive role, looking at what everybody else is doing in front of him. He understands what's happening behind him. But players other than Romero, I don't see a player in our squad at the moment that, for me, is captain material. I mean, it's like you say, Sonny, you can go to him anytime and ask him for advice and he'll give you it. But he's not that leader on the pitch. And he's too much, if he's got to come and give you a bollocking, he's going to be smiling at you while he's bollocking you. And how many people, you'll stand there and you'll have a laugh at he'll be like, you're doing it wrong, and you'll be like, yeah, all right, bud, arms around each other and carry on. Whereas Romero, we've seen it in the past where he's gone and given someone a bollocking. And he's obviously speaking English because we saw it with Gray, I think, last year. He said a few things to him, and we saw it with Bergvall, said a few things to him. And they understood exactly what he was telling them. There was no doubt about translation there. So to me, that's what we need. We need that player that's going to give it on the pitch. And he's the nearest thing I think we've got to that Roy Keane type character. And that to me is the leader on the pitch. I mean, I don't know, maybe make Sonny kind of club captain or whatever and Romero on-field captain. I don't know how it would work, but I think we need a little bit more of a bite for our captain than we had last season. And
Sergio Ramos was the leader, or is the captain of Real Madrid during that really prime era for them, and he's, I think, so similar to Romero in that they're both just nasty, almost evil, type players, out on the pitch. And Sergio Ramos is regarded as one of the best leaders, of that Real Madrid era.
And this is it. And I mean, we're all sitting here saying, well, Sonny, what's to say Sonny's going to play a lot this season? Maybe he's going to be more of a sub-type guy or a bit part player, or certain players are more in the Champions League, whatever. You kind of need a player that is almost guaranteed to be playing if he's fit. And I don't know if Sonny is that player anymore. I think he'll play, he will play a decent amount of games if he's still with us, but I don't think he'll play as much as Romero will if he stays fit.
Why has no one mentioned Vicario though? Just interest.
Vicario's not.
I don't think I want a goalkeeper as a captain. You need somebody up the field.
Didn't work with
Lloris. I'm not doing the Lloris thing again.
It's not that. I mean, the thing with Vicario, if you watched him last season, everything was everybody else's fault apart from his. And you can't have a captain blaming everybody else for your mistakes. And
that's what Lloris
you could simply see it was his mistakes, but it was still. I mean, the amount of times he screamed at Bergvall or Gray or something, you're thinking, well, I'd now to. They weren't even in the area when you've cocked up. So Vicario for me is not the captain, not yet. I mean, might be different under Frank, and a little bit different system might suit him better because he is a good goalie. But yeah, I mean, he's not a captain.
Fair.
He's not
Fair.
a captain.
Fair.
The interesting thing about Romero is on one side I can see some qualities that would make people think that he could be a potential good captain, but the problem is we've seen over the course of the last couple of years where there are certain games where he mentally checks out and it leads to conceding a goal that ends up being the winner for the opposing team. Does he have the internal fortitude after the match, knowing that his mistake cost it? Is he going to be the type of guy who's going to hold himself accountable? Is he going to show respect to the supporters, or is he just going to walk down the tunnel, post match and try to hide from the fact that he made a mistake? And to me, I don't necessarily know if that's a good captain, because as far as I'm concerned, a good captain, not only does he have to hold himself accountable when things are going bad, but he also has to be able in the locker room to sit there and point people out and say, you know what, that was absolutely just not good enough. This is not the way that we play, in the face of potentially being the bad guy to some of his teammates. Like these are the traits that a captain has to do, on top of not only playing for the badge and leading by example. And to me, I think there's only two guys that really fit that mold. And one of them is Dejan Kulusevski, and the other one just might be Dominic Solanke. And especially when you look at the work rate on the pitch, the fact that these dudes just never give up on the pitch, and that by itself is leading by example. But I think they actually have the personality to stand up when everybody just wants to hide. because of a mistake that cost him a game. And he just seems like the type of guy who will 100% take ownership of any type of mistake, but also hold his teammates accountable. And me personally, the thing that I hate about leadership committees is the fact that there's always a convenient excuse. There's no accountability, for mistakes, and that was the biggest problem with last year with the leadership committee, because they're in charge of policing themselves. But if there's a mistake, it's like, well, this, that, and the other happened, and of course, there's always going to be a convenient excuse instead of just standing up and saying, you know what, we messed up. You know what I mean? Like that's why this has to be Thomas Frank's decision and his only, and there should just be a captain and a vice captain. That's it. And you have to make sure that the guy that you appoint a captain is going to be the one that is not going to crumble under the pressure of being able to lead. And I don't necessarily, and this is no disrespect to Sonny, because I think he's fantastic. I have a tremendous amount of respect. For me, it's the same with Romero. I really think that it's generally going to be Kulusevski or possibly Solanke.
Interesting. One thing I do agree with you on is, the fact that, look, I think, I want to get back to the days of captain and vice captain. I think having this leadership group, I think it gets too murky, because it's almost like that, too many cooks spoil the broth, too many ideas, too many people having a say, it should just literally be the manager, the captain, and the vice captain, and that's it. Everyone else outside of that, you just sort of acquiesce to what they're asking you to do and stuff like that. I think once you start bringing in leadership groups, everyone has a say, and I think that's where a lot of your problems come from. That's where a lot of the infighting happens, a lot of the disagreements, the disgruntlements, and stuff like that. So for me, it should just be vice captain and captain. But guys, how do we feel about Thomas Frank making a decision? Because a lot in modern day football, it's a lot of it sometimes is just put down to who the players want, who the players would prefer. What do you make about Thomas Frank coming in and saying, I'm going to decide who the captain is?
Well, even Pep's come out this year and said he's making the decision right up in Manchester. He's like, I made the mistake last year letting this lot decide. I'm doing it this year. So I'm for it. I want the dude to come in. I want him to stamp his authority down. You're my go-to on the field. You tell everybody else what I need. That's kind of why I was so up for Brian and Mbumo coming in, because I thought he would be a perfect sort of general on the field for him. But yeah, I think I'm with you, man. I need the manager, the captain, and the vice captain. That hierarchy. None of this none of this group bollocks.
No, you can't have the team picking the cap. I mean, that just to me, it just
becomes a popularity contest, rather than what's
exactly.
Right?
To me, the manager comes in and he looks at who he wants as his captain. Because I mean, let's not forget though, we was kind of sitting here and thinking Romero. Well, he might be gone. He might be gone in the next week or two. So that's another player with a little bit of backbone gone out of our team. So I think Thomas Frank probably has to sit down with Romero. And I mean, if he picks Romero as his captain, you kind of think he's probably staying and hopefully going to sign a new contract. Because the other thing to consider within making Romero the captain, you can't make him the captain if he's going to be going this year or next year. It doesn't. To me, Thomas Frank needs to look at this and think, right, I've got a 3-4 year plan, whatever it is, and I need a captain to take me all the way. And if Romero is going to be that guy, then you need to be trusting that he's going to be staying. So if he is keen, if he sits down with Thomas Frank and says, look, I do want to leave, then there's no way he can be captain. So who might, and just if you do like process of elimination, right? Like potentially Sonny might be out the door. And this is not me trying to sell players. This is just the real, realistic view of what could potentially happen, right? Sonny could be out the door. Romero could be out the door. So there's two that, for all intents and purposes, aren't going to be captain. Kulu, although potentially captain material, he's injured for the first 2, possibly 3 months. You're not going to make an injured player captain and then give the armband to somebody else to give it to him when he comes back. You want your captain there from day one. It's not going to be Johnson. It's probably arguably not going to be any of the young kids in midfield. I don't think Udogie's captain material. So when you start whittling this down and then you look at, player performances and player
appearances, and you think, well, even if Romero is here, is he going to be available for 35, 38 games, or are we going to have another captain that's going to be out for another 10, 15? Sure. Same could be said for Van der Ven. Maybe his hamstring goes again. Sure. So now you're looking at maybe Porro and Bentancur as two realistic,
even just
and this is just me whittling down a player availability, and like maybe you're even looking at Porro at this point. He played the most minutes. He's reliable. He's closest to the manager on the field most of the time when we're at least going in one direction. So I don't know. When you play process of elimination, it's kind of hard to really nail down who you think it might be based on the player availability and who might still be here or not. So I don't know.
Very good points.
I think my disagreement with you with the Porro one is, again, he's a very likable player, and like you say, he's virtually played every minute as much as he could, and he's a fan favourite. He loves the club, but has he got that nasty streak to him to go and give the players the bollocking? I mean, I just look at him and think he's a player that I want on my team, and he's a player that I want, backing me up. But do I want him as my captain? And I don't. Again, I don't think he's the right type of player to be the captain. And the problem with it's all right saying he's on the right nearest the manager, but what happens if the problem's on the left and he's got to go all the way over or whatever to
right. You could argue that with. I mean, that's why I don't want a goalkeeper, because the goalkeeper can't go up front and talk to the strikers, right? So
and again, the other option there was Bentancur. Well, what's to say he's going to be here? And
I mean,
I think they are trying to cut him down
everybody, right?
I think he will. But again, I think Bentancur is probably as close to being captain material as anybody on the team. But again, you look at his performances last year, and I know a lot was to do with injury, and hopefully he'll be better this season. But he did go missing quite a bit last season as well. And fair enough. We're saying it's a new slate this year, and maybe giving him the captaincy, because we know there's a player in there. We know he is that type of player, and he's obviously, if anything goes wrong, he's going to start chucking a bottle at you, isn't it? He'll go pick a bottle up from the crowd or something and hurl it at you. But I think if we're not looking at Porro. If we're not looking at Romero, and it's got to be one of the existing team members, then probably Bentancur is the nearest thing to what you're going to want.
Yeah.
For Slinky.
No, I don't see it.
Again, I just want the guy to concentrate on goals. I just want him to concentrate.
And someone also mentioned that we'd forgotten Maddison, and I didn't mean to forget Maddison, but again, he's not one that immediately comes to my mind. And also, I mean, and maybe I don't want to be unfair on the guy. I don't know whether this was an Ange thing, but he doesn't do 90 minutes all the time. We're doing that little dance again, maybe he's injured out for 7 to 10 games again. Like, I don't know. You just need, and maybe I've just got an old school mentality of, I think the captain should be like an old Mr. Reliable. Do you know what I mean? They're week in, week out. And that's why, I mean, I'm not to pat myself on the back, but I don't know whether Morgan Gibbs-White is half a decent shout when he comes in. He's reliable. He's center of the pitch. If anyone's going to get around, like the number 10 is kind of that square in the middle of the field that he can bark at everybody. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a fresh, clean slate. No disrespect to anybody in the squad, but maybe you just need a new voice for everybody to listen to.
I think a new voice as captain is definitely needed for sure. I just think I'm not. If Maddison ends up being club captain of this football club, I'm probably going to cry, because I can see it being a disaster. I'm not being funny, but the fact that he went to the darts last year when we're losing games, I don't want that guy being my captain. A guy that's on every pool channel, dart channel, and everything else across fucking YouTube. I'm sorry, that's not a captain for me, because if he's doing that, everyone else is going to start doing that, and all of a sudden you're going to see a shit show on the football pitch. And the fact he brings pillows on a private jet going to games really winds me up as well. So, I don't want that guy being captain of this football club. But I do want to take a couple of comments here, because I think they're fair comments. We've got this from Rayman. It says there is a big difference between who we as fans might want as a public-facing captain and a captain who is effective within the dressing room, and that's Romero for me. Look, I've always been of the opinion your captain isn't there to be liked or be popular. The captain is there to tell you some home truths and book everybody's ideas up. You know, I just feel at Tottenham right now, we've got a captain that everyone thinks is a nice guy, he's popular and stuff like that. And that doesn't always make the best leaders in the dressing room, in my opinion. Lazy 8, big up, Nico. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well a pump for this game, buddy. Says, I feel like people are hung up on the image of what a captain is and does from 25 years ago. Odegaard, Arsenal don't win anything. Reece James,
Ghost to God.
Bernardo Silva, Lascelles +4, Yates, McGinn, Van de Ven, or Virgil Van. No, I think that's Van de Ven. What do these names have in common? They're all nice guys. I get that. They're all sort of nice guys.
I think he's saying they don't have a ton in common. You know, like it just seems like, you know, at least maybe that's how I understood his point, that, you know, when we're looking for this Roy Keane-like character, you know, to be the captain, it's almost like that's a thing of the past. It's not really the case anymore that, you know, the captains of various clubs and teams don't really seem to have a Roy Keane-like character. And it's just also maybe how the clubs just, they don't seem to be picking that guy. I think you just pick the guy that probably commands the most respect and, in a way, maybe the most fear. I know that is kind of what Roy Keane would obviously be like, but someone that, in a simple terms, someone who commands the most respect, commands the most fear, and probably lives both on and off the pitch, you know, in a proper professional manner. You know, I think that's the person who you're probably looking for. And that, in a way, could be Romero, but
yeah. The thing is with that, like you say, Jack, I think you're spot on. But if we look at Sonny, I mean, he's a professional. He's one of the best professionals at the club at the moment. If he's fit, he'll play. If he loves the club, he's been loyal to the club.
Captain of his country.
But you can also argue the fact of when the going gets tough, Sonny's not always the one to pull, drag that team through.
Why doesn't Sonny burden any responsibility for what happened last year? Why is it all on Ange? He's club captain as well at the end of the day. It's also up to Sonny to go out there and get these players to buck up their ideas and performances as well. That's the idea of a club captain. But yet everything fell on Ange Postecoglou. No one looks at Sonny, and it stinks to me of the captain being wrong. Like, I get that, none of these guys are Roy Keane types, but I'd argue Arsenal went to the leadership group because they had a load of weak personalities and characters in the dressing room. Arteta realised that. That's why he went leadership group. Some of these other clubs, I think the same. I think Roy Keane types in football in general, or in life in general, are dying out and being weeded out to a large degree. But if you've got one in your team, it doesn't mean you shouldn't use that and go back to that, because I think, I think it's similar with, everyone going, oh, Guardiola doesn't play with a striker. This is a new way of playing. No, he didn't play with a striker because he couldn't get Harry Kane. The minute he could go and get Haaland, he brought him in. Now you're starting to see people revert back and everyone wants to go and get this big guy up front, that old traditional striker. And I think you're going to start seeing the same with leadership, on the footballing pitch, where people will start reverting back to these type of characters. That's just my opinion on it. Sorry, Soren, I cut you across rudely. I just couldn't contain it any longer.
No, I think, look, nobody's championed Sonny as much as I have. I think he's a great ambassador for our club. I don't think he's an on-pitch captain, because as much as we can criticize Romero for, not necessarily, some people think he doesn't love the club. Some people think he's not loyal to us. But he, sometimes you look at it when the going got tough and he stuck his boot in when he shouldn't have done and things like that. Yeah, I mean, that's an argument. He was in a team full of leaders, but
there was there were 10 captains in that team.
Yeah, but the thing
if
was,
you listen to all them players, what Roy Keane said went. They didn't go against the rules. He brought standards around the place. No phones in dressing rooms, all that shit.
And this is it. I mean, look, I have no doubt that Sonny is one of these players that can probably give an inspirational speech. He can probably G the players up, but I don't know. I don't remember once last season. And look, the whole team was to blame. We're not just putting it on one player or two players, but I don't remember when the going got tough last season, seeing Sonny go around going, come on. Let's get these guys. We've got to come back. Let's get up there. And I don't think really any of our players did. I'm not saying it was just Sonny. They were probably all to blame. But to me, that's where you want your leader. And we say Maddison. Well, Maddison didn't do it. We say Porro. Porro was probably one that maybe did try to G him up and G the crowd up. But again, he was as much to blame for a lot of the criticism that was on that team. So if we're going to look for the perfect captain, I think the perfect captain is one we're going to have to bring in, because I don't think there is a perfect captain within the team. And we talk about a Morgan Gibbs-White. If you look at him, he is that snarly player. He is that dirty player. He is that player that'll stand there, and when the going gets tough, he'll try and get you to come on. But look, let's hope this season we don't see the team needing that G up, because it isn't going as wrong as it did do last season. So maybe one of the people that we're saying no to would make a perfect captain, because the situation will be different.
Well, that's why I'm hoping the World Cup year will start motivate these guys. So you don't need someone going around. Come on.
I mean, the worrying thing with that, though, Dave, is when the World Cup gets a lot closer, and this is the downside to Romero. Is he going to be up for the job when it's a month away and he's worried about getting an injury? That's the downside to Romero. But
I think you're going to. I don't think that's going to be a Romero issue. I think that's going to be a worldwide football issue, where you see players maybe the last five or so games sort of take their foot off the gas.
If Thomas Frank's got anything about him, he goes to Romero and says, look, you sign an extension. You give us another 2 years on top of the 2 years you've got. You're my club captain. And we go, you are the leader of this team. We go from there. And that to me is the way you get him.
I know we got reports a while back that Son is going to stay this year, but honestly, I think it's a situation where Thomas Frank is going to assess whether Son's still at this level or not. And the fact that we're pissing about with two captains either half and stuff like that, honestly, I think we're just appeasing Son until after the tour. And then I think you'll see Son leave. And I think that's when you will see maybe Romero stated as captain, hopefully alongside signing a new contract. That's what I think, and I'm hoping might happen. I just don't fully believe that. Yes, Son might want to stay, but Frank might want to move on from him. 33 years of age, not getting any younger and stuff like that. He's contracted to be here for that Korean tour anyway. If not, Spurs lose a lot of money and a lot of interest. Tottenham are the best supported, overseas team in Korea at the minute because of Son and stuff like that. So he will be there for the tour. And I just wonder, are we going to drag this out till the tour is done and then properly announce the captain if Son moves on? I want to say a big up Thomas, THFC member for 37 months, absolutely a long time. And within them 37 months, we became European champions, Thomas. So make sure you live and breathe that, my man. He says, afternoon, guys. Great show. As always, good to see you, Tomo. Hopefully you're keeping well. Whereabouts you from, Tomo? It looks like you're having a good time there, wherever you're sitting in your pool or your jacuzzi there. But big yourself up. I want to say a big up to Ribsy as well. Great to see you back, brother.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully you're keeping well. Have you had the baby yet? Let me know. Big up, Ribsy. We've also got Brian Timlin in the house. Big up, Brian, all the way from Galway. Hopefully you're keeping well as well. And then we've also got Kate Rickson says, Dave, I think it's good thing that Frank's picking the captain. Look, I agree with you. Like I said, I don't want it to be a popularity contest. That's why Son ended up as captain in the first place. For me, it's got to be captains should never, they're not the most popular guy in the dressing room. They shouldn't be liked. Half of it should be liked, and then half of it should be ruling by fear. In my opinion, I think that's what makes a good leader to a certain degree. But guys, I do want to kick this conversation. Actually, has anyone else got anything else you want to mention about the captain situation before we maybe kick this on and get talking?
I think there's
players that we're excited about.
I think there's plenty more opportunities to talk about it, further, because Frank is going to take his time, I think, over the decision. It looks like.
I would probably assume that as well too. Yeah. I just think that it's any captain that he names is going to be an extension of his leadership, which is actually how it's how it's supposed to go. And I would be surprised if it's going to be more on the popular side. It's probably going to be It's probably going to be a guy that's going to ruffle some feathers in the changing room as well too. A potential out of left field choice for captain. One that actually is an extension of his leadership.
I don't think Bentancur is a bad shout. I think, if he ends up signing that new contract, I don't think he's a bad shout there. I think it was Drew that said it. I don't think that's a bad shout at all. Big up, Alberto. Good. Back in London safe. Hopefully you're keeping well. I know you had a bad stint in Germany. And we've got this from Michael from Poland. Big up, Mick. He's back. Member for 38 months. Frank the Tank's era starts now. Choo-choo, motherfuckers. Football hype is slowly coming back. Season already started in Poland. Bring on PSG and the Prem. But you know what? Me and Jack dropped the preseason video sort of yesterday, and we were saying you know, once we get out to that tour, we sort of need to play well against Arsenal, Newcastle, and who's the other team? Arsenal, Newcastle,
Is
and
it
Bayern
Bayern?
Munich. Bayern, yeah,
Munich.
because like they're realistically the games that are our preparation for that Super Cup. If we're way off it against Bayern Munich, we're going to get absolutely pummeled by PSG. We're way off it against Bayern Munich in 2 friendlies last year. And against the bigger teams last season, we just got absolutely played off the park. You know, we have to be more at it in that Bayern Munich game is going to tell me whether we're ready for PSG or not. If we get absolutely played off the park and we're way off it, we're fucked. If we actually go in there and we're somewhat competitive, even if we lose by a goal or that, and we're competitive, we have every chance. But this is what I'm saying. I don't think we can just sit here and go, guys, this is about fitness. You got fucking PSG coming up. It's another chance to win a trophy. Imagine Frank, first competitive game, picks up a trophy moving into the season. Imagine that's what that's going to do for him and Tottenham Hotspur. You know what I mean? So for me, them 3 games out in Korea and Hong Kong and out in Germany, they're going to tell us a lot of what we need to know heading into that PSG game. Because to be honest, some people could say, oh, it's just a glorified preseason trophy. For me, no, it's not. It's a trophy that is respected, and it'll go straight into that cabinet, and I'll celebrate just like I did the Europa League trophy. So big up, Big Mick. Good to see you in the house.
It'd be really interesting. Be really interesting to see what PSG team it's going to be as well, because FIFA recommends. I don't know if it's mandatory. It might be, but they certainly recommend 3 weeks break after a tournament for players. And being as PSG had a really long season anyway because of the Champions League. I don't know how many first team players you're going to see. So that's even more reason to be in at our peak, because if we go out against PSG and they field a bunch of kids and they hand our ass to us, then it'll be really embarrassing. So, I also think, for the people that think it's just a preseason trophy, I think it's it's certainly a little more than that.
And I also think, we've got to play well in them games. I think to a large degree, it showed me how motivated and how hungry these players are actually by trophies. If they are, they come into preseason the way Kulusevski did last season, ready to hit the ground running with a point to prove. That's the way you come into fucking preseason, especially when there's a trophy on the horizon. So that'll tell me a lot about this squad and these players' motivation over the course of this preseason. But guys, I do want to kick it on. We'll probably go for about another 10 minutes, and then we will call it off there because me and Jack need to go and get the watch along ready and stuff like that. But look, more kudos, guys. More kudos. I mean, we all excited to see him in action today, our brand new signing. And is there any other players that people are excited to watch today? Maybe some players come back off loan. I'm very excited to see Jamie Donnelly today. I really hope he gets an opportunity in his preferred position anywhere across that front line, because I think he will take it. I think he'll surprise a lot of people. I'm also very interested to see what George Abbott can do, by the way. Phenomenal loan spell at Notts County last season. Absolutely phenomenal. If he can come back with the same energy and stuff like that, and let's not forget, I think Conte gave him a debut spell when he's like 16 or something like that. So, I wouldn't write him off yet. He could be another one that could end up sneaking himself, onto the periphery of the squad. Look, Jack, we'll start with you.
Pass it off to okay. Very, very nice of you to pass it to me, Dave. But I'll be talking to you during the watch along about it. So pass it off to someone else. I was going to make a cheeky comment to Drew, though, a bit rich of FIFA to talk about player welfare and what they would suggest, for what people should be,
absolutely, absolutely
extending the World Cup to 80 teams, the Club World Cup in the summer. A bit rich,
right.
But give it to someone else, since I'll be talking to you in the watch.
We'll go to Drewski, but also Kota, Kota Takai. I know Nick is very, very excited to see this guy in action. Do you know what, Nick? I didn't think he was. I think he's 6'4". I didn't think he was that big of a guy, to be honest with you. He's a bit of a fucking unit. So yeah, look, he's another one I'm looking forward to seeing. I know Nick probably already has the jersey with the name on the back, to be quite honest with you. But big up Nick. But Drewski, I mean, who are you most favorite? Looking forward to, and also on the kudos thing. I think many people are expecting that he just walks in and puts Johnson straight out the team. I mean, do you think that's the case? Is it as simple as that?
I'm not sure, man. I'm really not sure. And just real quickly, big up William Webb. He says PSG are a bunch of kids, and I know that's how bad it is. Could you imagine being done by the kids below the kids? Would be the thing. But yeah, I think I am excited about Kota Takai. From everything I've heard, he does seem like I don't know. He seems like a very, very assured centre back for somebody so young. So I'll be interested. Do you think he's going to
play a lot this season? Or
this is the thing.
He'll be loaned out.
This is the thing. I have no idea. I've watched a couple of videos, and he's just got this real assured, I don't know, man. in the nicest possible way, because I know Japanese people. I know a couple of Japanese people, and they are very sort of standoffish, very sort of subdued, just because it's their culture. But the kid comes off as almost a little bit cold, like "don't fuck with me," and I'm kind of down with that. Vuskovic, I'm really excited to see, because by all accounts he's a man mountain, even at his young age.
Oh yes, how could I forget that?
Yeah,
My new
I think Matisse Tell, I think, is going to be quietly going about his business this season. And I think if anybody is going to get more out of him, it's going to be Thomas Frank. As far as the Kudus thing and him uprooting Johnson, this is where.
But Johnson,
well, this is the thing, mate. Well, this is the thing. I don't even know if we're playing with two inverted forwards. Does Johnson become an inverted forward, and does Kudus play behind Johnson, or is there a world where they both play but occupy different positions? This is the exciting thing about it. Like, I've really got no idea.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's an amazing problem to have. I've just got no real idea how he's going to set them up. I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as Johnson's out the team. You can't just, regardless of what you might think of the kid, you know, 24 GA. Like,
that's why I asked the question.
Goals last year.
That's why I asked the question. I thought, like, you know, I think, look, someone like me may paint it as cut and dry. I do think Kudus is levels above, but he scored a lot of goals last year.
Is there a world where Johnson goes on the other side and inverts
left wing
and uses the right foot to come in and take shots?
I need to lie down.
It's not even left wing, left inside forward of a two. Then he hasn't got a really even thing like. I don't know.
What's to say Solanke and Johnson don't play up front?
Yeah, like I think he could play up front if he had that big man doing all the taking the hits, winning the headers, and all that shit for him, holding up the ball. I think, if given that option, he can run directly in behind. To a degree, it's sort of what he done off the right wing last year, isn't it? You know, the ball went central, it freed up the right hand side, he made the runs in behind. But to play up front on his own, the ball's just going to keep coming back. People underestimate the job of a striker and how important it is for them to hold that ball up and play your players, to keep that possession and get you up the field. With Johnson, that you won't be able to do that. So that ball will largely keep coming back. And by God, you better
he can't play on his own up there. There's no way. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Frank try it at some point.
The interesting one for me today might be, depending what sort of setup we do, there's a couple of players that Frank wanted at Brentford, and let's not forget the likes of Archie Gray. He wanted Archie Gray at Brentford. He had a role for him at Brentford, so it'd be interesting to see what he does with him. He might actually play in the position that he's supposed to play in, over the next couple of games. And today would be a perfect one for the likes of Archie Gray to actually sit in that number 6 and see, see whether he does it. But I think, we've sort of said players like Tell, a pre-season behind him, coming off a little, bit of a run of games, and we've now signed him permanently. So, this is a player that obviously Frank has looked at probably and thought, I can do something with him. Brennan Johnson, he wanted him at Brentford. So, again, what's to say we don't play that sort of player coming off him? Kudus, I don't see us paying that sort of money. And I know, it's similar praise to what we played for Johnson, but I don't see us paying that money for him and sitting him on a bench. To me, he has been bought in. He's obviously one that Frank has looked at and thought, that's the type of player I want. And I think the strength of Kudus over Johnson is Kudus will run down that wing and put a cross in. Whereas Johnson, that was the weakest point that we saw last season, that he just didn't run down, he didn't use his strength of speed and agility to go down that wing and put a ball in. And I think we'll see a lot of difference this year when you've got the likes of maybe Solanke, assuming we keep the players, Solanke and Richarlison in that box, and a ball coming over the top, and actually, for them to head. Interesting.
Well, the lineup is out, so we'll call it out. We'll get everybody's quick thoughts, and then we will end off, and we'll get that watch along up and running. Vicario starts in goals. Pedro Porro at right back. Destiny Udogie at left back, with Romero and Danzo forming the centre-back partnership. Romero, of course, captains the side. Bentancur, Sarr, and Alfie Devine in the midfield. This is an interesting one for Alfie Devine. Again, last year, he played out on right wing in pre-season, out of position for large parts. I think Alfie Devine, when we signed him, was a player that sort of played that attacking role out of the middle. So it'll be very interesting to see how he gets on in that role today. And I do think this is a massive audition for Alfie Devine. When we signed him, he's a player that came in with a lot of hype around him, hasn't really lived up to that hype, even when we've sent him out on loan. He was sent out on loan to that Belgian side with Vescovic, and it's Vescovic that comes back with all the headlines. So I think this is a massive audition. I actually think Devine potentially could be playing for his Tottenham career today. With Johnson off the right, Moore off the left-hand side again. I think another huge audition for Mikey Moore today, with Solanke through the middle. On the bench, we have Kinski, Brandon Austin, Ben Davies. How the fuck is he still here? Vescovic, Phillips, Van de Ven, Spence, Abbott, Basuma, Bergval, Donnelly, Son, Lancashire, Yang, and Kudus on the bench. A lot of defenders there on the bench. I wonder, will he maybe switch to a back five in the second half and try that out? But that is the team for today's game, guys. So people in the comments, let me know. Why does this keep changing? People in the comments, let me know your thoughts on that lineup. But we'll start with you, Drewski. I mean, what's your thoughts on the lineup? And I know it's pre-season, but go on, give me a score prediction.
Yeah, I can't tell. I don't know if it's going to be I think it's probably going to be 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 kind of hybrid-y kind of thing, right? Bentancur 6, Sarr 8, Devine floating 10, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Let's go 4-0 Spurs.
You happy with the lineup? Excited?
Yeah, I'm not unhappy. It's nice to see more out there. It's nice to get a look at Devine. It's really, I was expecting it to be a little bit more first team. I was expecting Kudus to start, and if I'm honest, I was expecting Donnelly to start over Devine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It literally is going to be 2 45s, right? So I can't read too much into why some person starting over another.
Yeah.
It's really hard to sell. But looking forward to it for sure. It's nice that Moore's on there. That's now that I know the question that you asked me earlier, the answer is now Moore, now that he's starting. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. Yeah. Because you'd like to think he's over all of his kind of the virus and everything, and he's kind of back to fitness. So
And Moore is playing on his preferred position, which is that left-hand side. He does prefer to cut in, onto that right foot. So hopefully, he can have a really good game today. I'm really excited. Nick does point out, though, no Kota on the bench. Not a huge shocker, though. He has had no rest at all. It's an interesting look. That is fair, and I wonder, are they trying to give him that bit of rest period, and say to him, look, we'll hold you back until pre-season tour, or is it a case they are going to loan him out? I'm not deciding on that one there, Nick, but I do think if we're going off, that maybe is a case that he hasn't had rest. I think then we probably don't see him next week against Luton, and we probably see him then more so on the pre-season tour. Soren, thoughts on the lineup, and let's get a little cheeky score prediction off you.
I love that lineup. I think it's brilliant. It's a nice mixture of youth and the older players. The interesting one for me is obviously, I know we kind of knew that it was going to be, but obviously Romero comes on as captain. I just think, I think Moore is far better on the left than he is on the right for me. I'm not saying he's not good on the right, but I do like to see him on the left. I think he cuts in nicely. Devine, absolutely stoked for the lad. I hope he has a good one. And it's a nice little.
We're back. We're so fucking back, lad.
Yeah, it's an exciting. If we saw this team in an early round of a Europa Cup or something like that, we'd be quite stoked about it. So to see it as a nice mixture, it's still a fairly strong looking team. You know, it's not one where you think the kids have come in and weakened it. It's a team that you could see actually being named at some point in the season against the team. So I think it's brilliant.
No, it is. I think it's a good lineup. I think you got a lot of experience out there, but then you've got a couple of youngsters in there as well, you know, which I like, you know, because putting out a team of all youngsters, it's very hard to go out and shine. But, you know, when you're in and around players that potentially could be playing with, it helps you make more of a name and more of an impression on the manager.
No Richardson anywhere.
I presume you may be traveling to Red and Lee Neri, so if you are, enjoy the game. Sorry, Drewski?
No Richarlison anywhere.
Oh yeah, no Richarlison.
Only got one striker.
Fair play.
No,
fair
play. I think Will Lancashire is in the team. So
we've only got one striker.
I wonder no Richarlison because maybe there's a move in the cards. I wonder, you know, that could be the case. You don't want to risk him getting injured, or he could be flying out somewhere today, maybe going on a medical. You just don't know. But that's fair play, Drewski. That's a good one. That's one to keep an eye on.
Is Tell on the bench?
Big up, Vince. No, he's not.
No, he's not.
No. So yeah, we've only got one striker then.
Yeah. Big up, Vince. Hopefully you're keeping well. This guy's a legend, Vince Vega, by the way. He's an absolute legend. Big up, Vince. Good to see you. Last but not least, Stevie, thoughts on the lineup, and let's get your score prediction, my man.
Yeah, it's a lineup that last night when we were doing predictions, this seemed like the defensive pairing was almost picked itself. It's nice to see Betancourt out there, and me personally, I think this preseason is going to be huge for him. But the one that intrigues me the most is Alfie Devine. And when you consider that, one of the biggest issues we had last year, consistency when it came to that number 10 position, that consistency of unlocking the attack, sometimes it was there, sometimes it's not. And for Alfie Devine and also Jamie Donnelly, this is an opportunity to really, to really plant your flag on this first team. What I actually like the most about this is Mikey Moore as well too. We've heard all offseason that Thomas Frank likes Mikey Moore's ability, and this is an opportunity to carve out a role on this first team, and it starts today. And I don't know how you guys feel it, but I don't know, man. I think this could potentially be a coming out party for Mikey Moore.
I really hope so.
No Solomon either, right?
No Solomon either. I think Mortimer makes a good point here, though, with Tell Udebar and Gray.
Great point.
Return from international duty. So, that's a great point. But look, at the end of the day, we've got a squad of about 30, 40 players nearly. You can't bring them all to Red. And I don't even think the coach fucking holds that, to be honest with you. So, they can't bring them all. But look, honestly, the second half is going to be like a wet dream for me. Kudos and Donnelly in the same team. It's going to be unbelievable to watch. But guys, we're going to leave it there. I have to say, it's been absolutely great to get these pre-match build-ups back. I feel like a normal person again. Over the summer there to a large degree, I'm sort of don't know what to do on the weekends and stuff. And then getting all these jobs normally I could pass off because I go, well, I got to do my pre-match build-up and watch along. So it's good to feel normal again. Good to be back again, guys. And it's good to have Tottenham back in action. How long that's going to last, we'll wait and see. But right now, the spirits are high and anything is a possibility ahead of this season. We'll see you back here at 2:30 for the watch along. And as always, I want to say a massive thank you to Drew and Stevie and Jack for getting out of bed so early to be able to join us here. Again, I don't think you get enough credit for the effort that you put in last year. I don't think people really understand the times that you're getting up to do this. So I really appreciate that from you guys. And also Soren taking the time away from feeding the nation as well. The guys out there doing all the harvesting and all that good stuff that needs to be done so you guys can eat in the winter. So again, fair play to him for making it back here when he could easily just go, I'm going to have family time. He says, no, I need to get on and speak about Tottenham. So I really appreciate that effort from you as well. And all of you guys at home who's decided to tune in today, really appreciate you and everybody who has gone the extra mile. El Dante, Dermatron, Blaine Devlin, John, Faz Radfar, Shawnee Maddox, Thomas, and Michael. Really appreciate the support, guys. It goes a long way supporting any of these YouTube channels that you do frequent and that you tune into. It really does go a long way. So thank you very much. And as Tony says, on the way out, can you hit the like buttons, please? You know me, I don't ask all the time. Very rarely I ask. So if you can, that'd be absolutely brilliant. See you back here. Go and get your sandwiches and your beverages ready. See you back here at half. Come on, you fucking Spurs. We're so
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on.
First